Right off the top, your intro music was a hit, so that's always a positive. Welcome everybody to today's interview. Meg, I assume your audio is working. Just as a check on that.
Let's see, am I here?
Yep, good. You're here, but I'm not ready for you yet. I have to do some intro remarks. So some of you guys are Art Storefronts customers, some of you are not. This session is definitely open for everyone. And we're sort of working up a new series here at Art Storefronts with the premise that, we're totally blessed as a company to have some insanely talented and successful artists and photographers call Art Storefronts home, which is the case with Meg today. And she's been with us for quite a few years. And we realized that we need to do a better job exposing some of these folks, their stories, what makes them tick, how they approach branding and marketing and sales, and all of that. And what we've discovered so far, or starting to learn, that each has a completely unique story, a different set of circumstances, subject matter material, a defined niche, or not at all, is the case may be. And I think, the variance in this business, the various different revenue sources, the marketing strategies, the makeups of the business is just so wildly different and super fascinating. There's no one way to get there. There's no one roadmap that works for everyone, right? So the idea with this series is really try to get some of these folks on, hear their stories, how they do things, how they approach marketing and sales and creation and work-life balance and everything in between. And yes, to see what we can learn from them. And, I definitely learned a ton on the last one with Jonah, and that was really, really fun. So yes, to see what we can learn from them, but, also to show us what's possible, to celebrate the success. And I know that, being a solopreneur, which just about all artists and photographers are, it is a damn lonely road, filled with ups and downs, and especially early on when you're just starting in your marketing and you're trying to get traction and you're trying to figure out if you have a niche or if you even need to have a niche or any of the above. And I think one of the biggest failures that I see for doing this as long as I have is artists and photographers quitting too early. When the road gets tough, when things are not going their way, when sales are not happening to the extent that they wanted them to be happening, and you always end up quitting right before you get over the top of that next mountain, and things start working out. And so my continued hope in all of these is that, by hearing from artists like Jonah last week, from Meg this week, that you leave with encouragement, that you leave with hope, that you leave with motivation to keep you going through the down times and the rough times. And knowing Meg for as long as I have, you can ask her. There have been some down times on her road. There were times when she was thinking about folding it all up. She has a really funny story in an art booth that you should potentially ask her about. So I wanted to set that up sort of as setting the table. And I think also, especially when you're just getting started, the urge is you hear from this new successful person, or you hear from this successful person, and you internalize everything that they did, and you're like, that's what I got to do. I got to do it exactly that way, right? And one of the things that I realize in these interviews is that's a normal reaction. Like, okay, well, this is how they're doing that, and just how pricing that, and this is how many limited editions. Jonah has 12. Don't necessarily feel like you have to follow everything. Not everything is going to work from you. It's no different than like a chef who was born in Mexico and then lived in France and had an Italian grandmother. All of that gets thrown into the blender and churned up, and then out comes your style, who you are, and what defines you. So my advice is not try to glom onto any one thing, but take what speaks to you, what you think you can bolt into your business, what you think gives you a new way of thinking, and then don't become Meg or Jonah, become you. Right, and take away from it, what you will. So I think that's an important statement. Quick programming note: the idea is going to bring in Meg, do the interview, do my best Barbara Walters, and then that interview will go wherever it goes. After that, we will go into Q&A. You guys can raise your hands, ask Meg the questions directly. And I like these things just kind of going organically and off the cuff and no prep. Meg and I did no prep, didn't talk to her. I just said, hey, be here at this time. Let's just see what happens. So she has no idea what I'm going to ask her either, which should be pretty fun. If you have to leave, and as the thing's rolling along, if you guys want to throw comments in the chat, a lot of people are doing that. I will see those, and I might ask those questions as Meg, so you can avail yourself of that if you like. And what else? If you have to leave early, or you come in late, or any of the, well, if you come in late, you won't see what I'm saying here. But if you have to leave early, don't worry. We're recording it. We're going to send a copy to absolutely everybody. And then is one final disclosure before I bring Megh on. Megh's been a customer for a long time, so I've known Megh for quite a long time. Consider her a dear friend at this point, but she is also a bit crazy. Okay, crazy in the sense that early on, when she was growing her business and we were trying to figure out at Art Storefronts, like, what are we doing? We sort of worked early on really closely with customers doing case studies. And basically, we approached a customer like Megh and said, hey, we have this crazy idea. Do you want to ship it? And Megh was crazy in the sense she's like, yeah, okay, I'll expose my email and my social media marketing, my Facebook to you. And so we worked on a number of different case studies over the years. Facebook ads, sales campaigns, messenger bots. Megh was a pioneer in running live art shows and one of the first ones to do those as well. She's been on the podcast multiple times, and I highly recommend that you guys go back and listen to those episodes because they're super interesting in and of their own sense. But I'm definitely well versed in her business. And so, Megh, I'm very happy to have you on today. Can't wait to figure out what we are going to learn. To kick things off, quick introduction, who you are, what do you do? And then to spice things up a little bit, Megh, what is one thing that very few people know about you that is interesting and or embarrassing?
Ooh, that's such a curveball.
I gotta throw a couple. I have to throw a couple.
Not going to warn me about that. I am very type A. I think most people think I'm very laid back, and I'm actually very type A and very anal. So
Classic. And what's sort of your brief origin story? You know, who you are, where you grew up, how you got into painting, the whole thing.
Sure. I grew up in St. Louis, and I always painted. I was always kind of an artsy kid. I went to KU for a graphic design degree and then lived in Chicago for about 10 years. And I was an art director for a while. I worked, kind of big agencies, small, in-house, kind of all of it until I started my own thing. And I did a lot of food branding, which is why you see some of my work has food stuff to it. And then I had a injury and had to take a sabbatical from work. And during that time, I started painting again, and I was like, I wonder if I could make this a real job. And the rest is kind of history. That was about 7 years ago.
7 years ago. Wow. I didn't know that. Yeah. Here's another curveball. What is Megh short for? Where is it, Megh?
Oh,
I honestly don't know.
Megan.
It's short for Megan.
It's short for Megan. So when I got married to my husband, whose last name is Knappenberger, who told me on our first date that I did not have to take his name, which was funny.
That's decent.
I was like, I gotta lose a syllable somewhere. So that's when I started going by Megh, professionally.
Got it. Love it. Well, I've interviewed you a number of times, talked to you thousands of times, what it feels like. Mm-hmm. I'm going to do my best to resist the urge to just go right into marketing, which is the only thing that I want to talk about. Okay. I want to start and outside of the realm. And some of this stuff came up in Jonah's interview, and I got a bunch of feedback on it. And I was like, you know what? Why do I never talk about that stuff? Yeah. Does work-life balance exist? Is it a thing? How do you approach it? You're a mom, multiple kids, a mortgage, a social life, and all of that, and you're running a big business. I'd totally be interested in getting your thoughts on all of
that. That's a great question. I think my answer to this will be different today than it would have been 5 years ago, than it will be in 5 years. And I think the key to balance, at least for me, is like being very clear about what is happening right now and what do I have to work with right in this moment. So I have an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old. And, 4 or 5 years ago, the struggle and the balance thing was different because it was all about physical exhaustion, having a baby and another kid. And then, as they move forward, the challenges kind of change. And so I think, right now, the challenge is different than physical exhaustion. Now it's about, there's a lot of stuff going on. And so our challenge is like, how do we manage the calendar of all the things? And so we just spent a bunch of time like reconstructing our calendar, making sure we had a digital display in the kitchen, and, just working with what we had. So I think for me, and I think everybody has this, everybody has life stuff. Some people are caring for aging parents or, dealing with chronic illnesses. Like everybody has stuff, whether they have little kids or not. So I think this is, applicable to everybody. Is just like, for for me, it's about getting really good at looking at like, what do I have to work with right now? What can I actually like really depend on? And then what's the most important thing I have to get done? And everything else, like I just have to let it fall away. And especially when my kids were younger, I think that it was hard because the balance was so much more shifted towards family and kids and the unpredictability of that. But what I've found over the past, like really this year, if something has happened this year with their ages, that I've been able to like start going back through the wreckage of the past 5 years and like picking up some of those things that I had to leave behind and kind of dusting them off and like bringing them back in and having more balls in the air. So I think it's balance is like, it's not a thing you just set and it just like stays. It's like constantly every day, all day long going like this. And we have to just be flexible to things moving around and changing and just like being really good at stopping and saying like, what's the most important thing right now? What can I move aside? Because we can get real tunnel vision on this is like me, completely me. I can get very tunneled on like, I've got to do this thing and forget to look at like, is this important? Does this really matter? Is this important for like what I'm trying to do? So that's my balance answer.
It's such a great answer. I mean, my kids are 5 and 7. And so just, at some point in time, you get old enough and wise enough to realize life has seasons and just to go with the flow a little bit. There's not much else.
Totally. We're in the same parenting phase, so we can kind of sometimes commiserate about that.
Yes, indeed we can. There are seasons. I want to hear about other inputs. What other books or podcasts or YouTube channels do you feel like's been instrumental over these last 7 years as an input to really help you hit levels and do what you do?
I want to do that like thing to talk about.
Podcasts
and stuff. Well, I think for me, it's been about like really opening up to the research side of things, something I've always loved. And, when I first started painting full time 7 years ago, my style, this like kind of has to do with my style. Like I was working like really fast and feverishly and like, oh my God, I got to make a million paintings, like, And I, over time, have started to let myself slow down a little bit and made time for these things like research that really totally impact how I work. So for me personally, I love science podcasts. I love Radio Lab. There's a podcast called Ologies that is fascinating. That's about all the different types of ologies out there. And books about, so that's kind of like the research side. But I also really enjoy reading about other creative people. I'm not somebody who loves other painters and artists for some reason. For me, it's more about like other chefs, writers, people who are musicians, and reading their autobiographies or the stories of their lives. And that's really inspiring to me to see how other creative people made their way. Everybody does it their own way. And there's a lot of similar things there. So, I listen to audiobooks while I paint. And so I burn through audiobooks pretty fast. The list of what I listen to is long. So I'll try to work in like a business development book, every third or fourth one as well. And those, I think it's really important to take, I try to take one morsel out of each book. It's not like read the book and completely implement that as my lifestyle. It's like, I try to pick up one thing. It's like, oh, okay. And then that kind of gets ranked to the side on to the other stuff. And everybody kind of, you pick something up from a book, each time.
So true. And different times, different things from the book at different seasons of life when you read it, which is crazy too. I totally think about that. Not to go too far down the rabbit hole, but like early on you start reading a book and you're like, okay, I've started this thing. I got to finish it. Right. I have to get all the way through it. And maybe it's a bad book, and learning how to like put the damn thing down when it's not giving you any value and just move on. Huge skill.
Yeah.
And then learning, if you get one thing out of that book, do you know the ROI? That audiobook costs you $7.99. Anyway, love that.
Yes, totally agree. Put books down when they suck.
Yes.
There's no rule.
Massively important. And, Meg, you said something there, okay, that you don't really like following other artists and photographers. Do you want to explain that to half your follower base? Okay. Everyone always complains all the time. All that follows me is artists and photographers. Meg, we've used in our ads a ton of times, so we have like ruined her social accounts with artists and photographers. I'm just kidding.
No, I mean, like, as in not on social media. You know what I mean? Like reading I don't read about famous painters. I read about like the other people. I don't know why. You can psychoanalyze me for that later.
Okay, on the list. When you went full time, so 7 years ago now, you had a full time job. Did you literally burn the boat? Did you quit and say like, I'm gonna make this a thing, it's gonna happen, or were you like, I'm gonna keep the job and this is gonna be the side hustle for a couple of years? Curious about that.
I burned the boat, and at the time I had a back injury, and I kind of like went downhill over the course of like 8 months to the point where I really couldn't work anymore. And so at the time I was running a branding studio, and I had a couple of employees, and I had a pretty big thing spun up, and I had to completely implode that and tell all my clients I was done.
Whoa.
Completely, I had to completely set it on fire. But I was like physically forced into doing that. And I really needed to take 3 or 4 months to just recover. And so I did that, but it's worth noting that at the time I had like a $40,000 nest egg to do that. So that was in my mind. And I think it's important to talk about the amount and how I did that, because I didn't jump with no money, and I wouldn't and couldn't have jumped with no money. I have a spouse, but we are partnered in all the things. So I had that as, here's the amount of money I have. I have a little time to heal and a little time to figure out what I'm going to do. And when that runs out, then we'll see what happens.
Yeah. And I'm sure you probably got pretty close. Well, I know you did, because
I got I mean, and I didn't hit I started to make some money. So, it kind of goes up and down. I didn't hit that bottom out point until I was like 6 months or a year into it. So, but yeah, I got to like 17 cents. So
yeah, 17 cents left in the bank account until it happened, which is crazy. People always ask me that question, like, well, I'm ready to quit my job and do this. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't want to be responsible for telling you.
Yeah, I mean, people ask me that really frequently. And I think everybody wants to be told, like, yes, this is a good idea, or people want a leap like that to be validated, so that then they can be like, well, everybody told me this was a good idea. And like, you can't ask other people. Like, you got to look at your own situation. Everybody's financial situation is different, and you got to figure out, like, I went through the math and was like, how long will this last? How many months can I pay our mortgage? How can I do this, this, and this? And how much do I need to start bringing in each month to make this viable? And that wasn't super clean at the beginning, but then over time it did get cleaner. And like, I'm shocked by like how few people ask me that question. And then I say, like, have you done the math? How much money do you need to live on? And they have no idea. It's like, well, this is a business. You have to make money.
Yes.
Like, do the math. It's really important.
Yeah, insanely important. We're in the start, in that period where you were just figuring it out and plowing through the nest egg. Did you sign up with us in that season?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I signed up within that first year, because I was working on getting licensing with KU. And before I could get licensed, I had to be able to show that I could fulfill a large volume of orders. And I was, at the time, printing, packing, shipping, driving UPS all myself for everything I sold, which is
nobody do that.
Is such a waste of time. And there was no way I could meet, for them to say, yes, we want to give you licensing and your 12% is going to make us this much money. The only way for them to make money off of me is for me to be able to fulfill a huge volume of orders. So I needed something to allow me to do that, which is where Art Storefronts came in for me.
Got it. That's just super interesting. And, in the previous podcast, you guys, and in the previous interviews, we've covered, quite in depth Megh's KU story and how amazing that is. And so I don't feel like we need to cover that and go there again, per se. We've covered it. You can go back and do it. Megh has taught licensing classes inside of Art Storefronts a couple of years ago. She's done some unique things there. What I would like to talk about is, or prompt you on, is, I think your superpower as an outside observer, perhaps one amongst many, is reverse engineering attention. Meaning not just creating what you want to create for the reasons of you wanting to create it, but starting with a massive audience in mind, okay? A massive audience in mind, and then creating the work for that massive audience. And then what's been really interesting in seeing you do that is, okay, you've done that a number of different times. That's interesting. But then you also get the massive level up about when that particular audience is massively charged up, right? I.e. being the KU group and they just won the national tournament, right? I.e. creating the Chiefs stuff and the Chiefs just won the Super Bowl. It's like a force multiplier on the fact that an audience is already there. And I feel like in your recent series of works, you've continued to go back to the well on this again and again and again. Tony Bourdain, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Ted Lasso, and then you did the women's KC soccer team. So I feel like I'm curious how much of that was intentional, how much of that was strategic. Do you just intuitively do that? And do you think that that's going to be a huge part of your strategy going forward? Or do you feel like you just borrowed that to get attention for the short term? Now you can do whatever you want. Layers to that one.
It is, it is absolutely intentional and strategic. And I think to act like, oh, that was successful, yay, I just got lucky. No, that's not how this works. But I think the key to these things that I'm choosing is that there's two parts. I'm being strategic about the work that I'm leaning hard into making and putting a lot of muscle behind marketing. But I'm also choosing things that I'm very passionate about personally. So there's a lot of stuff out there that there are big audiences for that I don't care about. And it's much harder to do that, do this with that. So I am saying yes to work when it comes not, just from me, if I'm doing a project with another company or something, kind of like the women's soccer team, I'm saying yes to things that are in my, values and care wheelhouse. So I think that's a really important part of it. And I think being able to reverse engineer is just, I think this is a skill you can learn and perfect. So it's not, I don't think this is a personality trait. And I don't think very many things are. I think we can learn how to do most everything. We can learn how to be confident. We can learn how to do all this. So to say that this is my superpower doesn't mean that anybody else can't learn how to do this, because as artists and photographers, the reason we're good at this is because we can imagine things and we can imagine this is how I can see this piece playing out. And really it's doing that exact same thing just with marketing. It's thinking about well, what do I want? And then how can I do something that fills that in, and thinking about the end and then just working your way backwards from there. And that really helps me to decide what's the work I want to be doing. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's the only work I'm doing, but it's the work that my fan base is seeing. And then it does allow time for me, if I want to pursue something a little weirder, or, more personal on the side, I can. And if I don't share that, fine, it's not for them, it's for me.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Did I answer the whole question? I got lost there.
No, you did. I like it when it gets lost. I find that to be more enjoyable. I love Gary Vaynerchuk, always loved him, and he's been ranting recently on a couple of reels. I mean, I don't see everything he puts out, but every once in a while it comes to my feed and I look at it. And he was talking about this notion of the top 1%, right? And how using it to prove how out of whack most people's, his audience is largely kids, right? How out of whack people's ideas of how much money they're going to be making. It's made on the street interviews, how much do you want your significant other to make? $875,000 a year, right? His point was the top 1% of wage earners in the United States, you know, the bottom of that 1% is like 400 grand. I looked that up. It's actually higher than that, 600 grand. But where you are and what you sold in terms of art, you know, you're over $1 million level. You've sold, I mean, I don't want to, you know, put too many figures, but the sheer amount of volume that you've sold directly online, directly from your website is staggering. I believe it firmly places you already in the top 1% of art sellers in the United States. Obviously not the very top of it. It's a huge percentage, but have you thought and reflected on that? What an incredible achievement that is in 7 years. And then the follow-up is what is the ambition for your art business? Because you're so new into your career. You're just getting started. I mean, 7 years is nothing. That's a blip, right? I mean, I've got so many people that come onto the art business webinars that are in their 70s, 80s, and 90s even. So when you think about that arc, like what ultimately, how far does Megh want to go? Where do you want to go? Have you thought about it? Have you thought about it?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Hitting, so I rolled over the $1 million in sales mark, I think earlier this year, like within the last year, I hit that marker. And my dad helps to track some of my royalties, like some of the really specific stuff for KU. And so he, you know, was kind of like keeping track of that number. He's like, you're getting pretty close here. Yeah. So definitely, you know, within my own family circle, we had some celebrations of that because it's a huge deal. And it was a big moment for me this year because at the beginning, when I started out, my goal was let's just see if this works. Like, let's see if I can make a living, which, you know, is modest in, you know, the goal was really simple and small. And I think this year I finally realized, like, I was feeling a little bit kind of like, where do I go next? What do I do? Like a little bit unhinged or a little untethered at the beginning of the year. And I sat down and it was like, you know what? I'm untethered because I proved the original thing. I figured, like, it works. People like my work. I'm good at this. People are buying things. Like, this works. It's time to move that aside and think bigger. Like, this, now what do I want? Now, like, where do I want to go? And so I have spent a lot of time this year thinking about that. And I've also been working with business coaches and mentors. That's something I've always done throughout my entire self-employed career, which is 13 years. I always have somebody there who I'm bouncing things off of. I'll talk to Patrick sometimes. I'll talk to Nick. Like, we will have conversations. Yeah, about like, okay, here's kind of what I'm thinking about doing. So, you know, this year is really about like, what do I want this to do for me and where do I want to go? And I want to build an empire. I want to be a big piece of the Midwest. I want to be a big piece of the West Bottoms, which is the neighborhood in Kansas City where I'm located. I want to buy a building down here. I want to open a gallery and a studio space. And I want to do big projects for, you know, for example, I'm doing a collection of 11 original paintings for a building on KU's campus right now. This is like a huge project. And one of the things that's cool about this is that the work then can get reproduced and sell, and it'll hang in a place where it's like a billboard forever. And so it's saying yes to projects like that are not only cool and for cool clients, but are reproducible in the future so that I can do something once and sell it 1 million times. And that's really at the core of my strategy, is to make work that is both making me money when I sell the original, but is also reproducible and marketable, you know, kind of forever. So my, you know, every artist is different. For me, it's about being very intentional about that original work instead of making my whole strategy about like churning out originals. That is not the way that I like doing it.
For sure. And again, I love what you said there, because the deeper I get in this business and the more years, the more experience and everything else, it's like there is no playbook that works for everyone. None whatsoever.
No.
And you know, pursuant to some of our conversations that we've had, like I hammer Megh on developing and cultivating additional revenue sources for her business, because I think there are significant possibilities there. And, you know, I realize as we mature as a business, and you know, I get this all the time, like, you know, people zeroing in on one thing that we do, one thing that we don't, this person, that person. You know, with Jonah last week, it's like his website's not even on your site. He's doing something different for his gallery. I don't care. Our job, I realize, as a business is like to help create successful artists and photographers. And I don't care what particular service of ours you use to get there, as long as it's pushing you faster to get there, right? And there's no one rule about how you do it. Like, some of the people that are following you on this are selling a ton of classes, and it's like, you know, it doesn't matter. There's no one way. Just pick some revenue sources that work and keep building the following. You know, one of the techniques and the tactics that we talk about all the time, and it's had a number of different names over the years. It was the curator strategy, and then it morphed a little bit differently. But the takeaway is that go and find somebody that has access to a ton of attention and try to get your art involved with them, right? And along that course, it's like, well, how do I do it? What do I ask in return? Like, what am I going to get out of it? Like, how do I pitch it to them? Just start the damn conversation, because all you're looking for is one big win where you can go back to the well and back to the well and back to the well. And I feel like, you know, that original KU deal for you, and everyone's asking, what's KU? What's KU?
Oh, sorry.
Megh got an official licensing deal at the University of Kansas, which somebody just corrected me because I put Kansas University KU. Anyway, University of Kansas, to paint the mascots and sell this. And then it turned again into you painted the basketball stadium. And then back to the well again. You've done like multiple events with them, and you're still doing events with them. So you essentially found someone that had attention. You got one deal over the line, and now more. It's what the whole strategy can and should be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and you were talking about the curator strategy and the, you know, different streams of income. And one thing that you were really pushing at the beginning of this year was, you know, smaller like merch items, things that people can impulse purchase to pull new customers in. And something really interesting is that I did the Ted Lasso piece like last December, and I did that piece. It was on my website. It was all there. I met Jason Sudeikis. Like, we did the whole thing.
Is he cool? By the way?
Literally, yes, very nice.
Yeah.
Very. I mean, I met him for like, you know, 5 total minutes. So I don't know, it's not like we're best friends, but but we, you know, did all that thing, and you would think like certainly everything sold after that. Like, nothing. Like, it was totally quiet. Then as the season 3 and the finale started to like kick up a few months ago, I created a mug like with that image on it and just the word believe. And I did like a cool video of it, and I did a giveaway with a curator who had like 250,000 followers. And I shit you not, I sold so many mugs that my bank called me because they thought it was fraud, like because there were so many charges coming through from art storefronts or the chargeback. And they were like, what's going on? And then I did another giveaway the following week, and it happened again because I sold so many pieces of merch, which brought in all of these new people into my, both as purchasers onto my website, into my email list. And it's just like a perfect example of like, that giveaway cost me $5 in cost. And it got great engagement on both sides. And like, you know, that pulled people in. And then Patrick tells me like, call me in 5 years when one of those people buys $100,000 worth of your originals,
how it works.
which is like the end game of that strategy, which I totally believe. So it's a great example of
the easiest customer to get, the one you already have. It also why you had to raise the prices on your originals, but we don't need to rant about that currently.
But it's also a good example of like, one more thing about that is sometimes the work, like for things like Ted Lasso, that's a thing where like somebody's more likely to just buy a mug because it's a TV character and they like it. They're not as likely to buy the higher price point things. And so like, it was a great image, but it just needed to like find the right thing. So even within my own work, sometimes I have to like, some things look really good on this thing and I need to like put all the weight behind that. And so that was a good lesson for me this year too.
For sure. Now, I put in my notes to ask you this because one of these last times we were on the phone, you were like questioning a little bit whether or not this branding, and I should say, like, everyone's like, how do I brand myself? What do I do about branding? And one of the lessons I learned earlier in my career is sometimes you don't have a damn choice in it at all. Sometimes your audience brands you. And guess what sticks the best is when your audience brands you. And so Megh has kind of started with KU, and it's since morphed into these various other Midwest, Kansas, Missouri icons, like whether it's the Chiefs or whether it's the women's team or whether it's some of the work that you've created that is representative. You were worrying a little bit on the phone about, do I want to be pegged down as Midwestern Megh, which is short for Megan, or do I want to try and hit something bigger? One, do you remember my advice, what I gave on that? And two, have you come around on
that? Yes. And yes, I have. And I think this tied right in with that beginning of the year question of like, okay, it's time to pick a new goal. Mm-hmm. And I did sit in it and think about it for a while. And ultimately, like you said, my audience has kind of branded me as a Midwestern artist. And also it's something that I can't really separate myself from that. It's such a part of who I am and how I work and the way that I look at the world and the way that I think, that like this idea of like a Midwestern ethos is now like, I've claimed it, I guess is the best way to say it, because it was already there.
Yeah,
I wasn't going to separate myself from it.
You're owning it. Yeah. And that was my advice to Megh when we talked on the question. Is like, I could argue both sides, right? Like you want the world to be your oyster and be able to sell into much bigger markets. But guess what? The Midwest is pretty doggone big market. There's a lot of action there, right? And owning that is not such an easy thing to get. And with each additional step, you keep getting higher and higher up the chain, which I think is extremely interesting and all that. I want to ask you a question about priorities and time. I do not want to turn this into an ASF pitch session, but you're on Copilot. Copilot's helping you. Okay, great. It's giving you some time back. How are you allocating the time that you're getting back as a result of that? Where are you finding is the highest leverage place with that time to go back to?
I'm painting. Like that's the biggest one, is being able to set a more defined schedule for myself during the week, and this takes time to like figure this thing out. Is like what works best in terms of when. But oftentimes I would come in on a painting day, which means it would be pretty open. And I would be like, I haven't posted anything in a while. Or I'd start like making a video of something that I was working on. And then I would kind of fall down that like social media rabbit hole and get sucked in. And so it's just helping me to know that like that little like ding, 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 like keep that thing going. Don't let it die. Like that little bell in my mind has like really quieted down, because I know even if I'm like completely in the cave for the week, there are things that are moving that I just need to sit down and review once a week or once a month. Really, it's like once a month now. So it's totally awesome.
super interesting. One other thing that I want to wind back on that I think you probably really always enjoy, and I think you would be super active on even if you weren't trying to build your art business, is you took to Instagram super early. You're mega active on Instagram and always have been. Let me define that. Regularly posting, not just regularly posting about her work, showing a window into Megh's world, what makes her tick, what she's interested in, where she's traveling to, little windows here or there, right? Understanding that, leveraging polls and stories and the whole thing, right? The whole full tactical thing. I think, one, I want to hear about what impact you think that's had on your business. Generally curious, don't know. And then two, I think you strike a really, really good balance between not just making it about the work all the time. And then also, I've been ranting recently. I'm not sure if you've heard of any of it, but it's my firm belief that 50% of an art sale is the art. 50% of it is the story, the artist, and what makes them tick, how people bond with them and can represent. And it's funny because the guy that runs Instagram, his name's Adam Mosseri. He's got a huge account. He does a really, really good job of practicing what he preaches, i.e., I own the social network. I run the social network. I'm going to be extremely active on the social network. And if you haven't followed him, you should totally follow him because it's interesting to keep up with the latest. But he's got like a huge dad life section, right? Like, when have you seen Mark Zuckerberg post a single solitary damn thing, right? Like, never. No one knows what that guy's up to. No one really cares. Elon Musk does a good job of it too, to a certain extent. And Twitter's a different network, or X now. But anyway, not about that. You strike a very good balance. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that. Do you just enjoy it? It comes natural, in which case everyone's going to hate you for that. Or do you feel like you're intentionally doing things there in a certain way where you're breaking things up like
that? It's intentional, definitely. And I think I read something a few years ago that really stuck with me, that social media, like, let's hold on, I wrote it down because I want to make sure I get this right. Like, on Instagram, my audience is not there to serve me. I am there to serve them. And what I'm there to serve them is entertainment, not anything else. People are on social media to be entertained. So I think at the beginning, I was guilty of a lot of like early Instagram, goof ups, whatever, everybody was. But I have constantly tried to learn and watch and kind of see what other people are doing and read things and just kind of see like, what do people recommend? And then also like what feels good to me. So I don't always just like follow things, but one of the things that I think is a crucial social media thing is that sometimes I see people, like, especially being an artist is a solitary pursuit. Yes. And sometimes it can be like, there are things that can feel really hard. And we can get into this mode where it's like, oh my God, I'm doing 10,000 things and no one ever sees any of it. And I have this whole audience out here, or like, I'm not sure about this thing. And we like use social media as a way to like affirm our decisions or whatever's. And like, no. They are not there to like affirm and serve us. Like, we are there to push pure entertainment out. And that doesn't mean it has to be like sunshine and like only like happy, perfectly styled stuff. It just means it's intentional to say like, my intention is to tell stories and to connect with people. And sometimes those stories are, they're whatever, they're all over the gamut. But I focus on making sure that like pausing, and if I'm about to like post something that I'm like, oh, is this me just needing a place to put a thing? Then it's like remembering to like not bring my personal baggage and shit into my social media business, because it is a business and these people are customers, and like all of that other angsty stuff is like, it seems like an oxymoron for artists and creatives to like separate our personal baggage from our businesses, because it's like people expect that that's what it is, but like there needs to be a place for that. So that is like, that's where these mentors, coaches, probably therapists for everybody. We all need a therapist. Like, that's where that stuff goes. So I think being really realistic about like, this social media can't like, Instagram is for my business. It is for making connections, making sales. And then, when I post things that are kind of about my life or about my family, it always has like a little tie back to the work somehow. So it's not just like, look at my kids, they're so beautiful. It's like, look at my beautiful child, and also the gallery of art that we've collected. And it's, so I try to like make it so there's always a thread, because it's confusing for people who follow you, and they ultimately will unfollow you if you're on there like complaining about filing your sales tax too much, which sucks, but like, it's not for there. So I could like rant all day about social media, but
it's a really sage thing to say. I mean, what was interesting is how you inverted that and said, they're there to be entertained, right? And yes. When she says that, I think that's a very, very interesting way to use the language. Now, if you follow Megh social, and apologies in advance for doing this, Juan has put it in the chat. I think you guys should follow Megh. just deal with it. You already dealt with it.
Come on down.
You're still marketing on there. you're still tying it back to the work. You're still showing off the work. You're still showing off your process, all throughout it. So don't think that Megh's not doing it for the work with that lens of like, they're there to be entertained. I think it's fascinating because once they're bonded to you, then, the rest is just all downhill from there. What are you up to on Instagram now?
I've been really quiet this month because I'm so deep in this big KU project. So it's been a lot more heavily the co-pilot stuff, which is great because that is just kind of like keeping the engine running.
For sure.
But what I'm working on right now is this, like, figuring out how to tell the story of 11 pieces of art in a way that, that has to get stretched out over time. And the research, and like, I could talk for the rest of my career about this project and fill all of the time. So it's a really interesting thing, and something that I'm thinking about and planning and strategizing while I'm doing the work is like, how do I talk about and launch this work in November for Q4 and tell these stories in a way that people can digest them, and like balancing like how much to say and how much to hold back and where to put the details. And this is one that I haven't done this before. I haven't done it for this many pieces of work that have a story that's so big. So I'm still trying to figure that out. I don't know. Watch in November.
For sure. And that's why I'm asking these questions selfishly, right? Because for a long time we were relying as a business on spending too much money on ads, and we've since like really fired up our organic program. One, because I have to teach all my customers how to do it, and two, if you're not walking the walk, you are a fraud. So I've been hammering it really, really hard, still learning, still figuring things out every single solitary day. I don't think you're hammering it hard enough. I think there's more upside potential. I mean, it's just too important of a social network, right? And I always talk about the two of them in conjunction. Insert the word Instagram or Facebook, it's the same thing. It's all the same different post types in the storytelling and everything else. Do you find that you're learning to enjoy it more, enjoying the art form that is storytelling, and in those little boxes that we have to shoehorn the content into?
Yeah, I am, because I think, for one, seeing it for what it is really important. And, stopping, like, one thing that helped me a lot with that was like, I don't write and post at 9 p.m. anymore. And I did all of my social media from like 8:30 to 10 p.m. for a long time. And I grew to hate it because of that. And that's like the key time when people are on, but ultimately, like, that was making me unhappy. So I think that's a big part of it, is just like, make it work for you. If posting at noon every day works for you, like, do that. It's better to be consistent.
When you can ship it. It is so true.
Yeah. And then just like leaning into the things that I like doing about it. And then keeping track, like I'm, keeping like pretty high level numbers across the board on every part of my business. And consistently, Instagram is driving the most people to my website and is driving sales. So that just reminds me, like, this, this is working. People are coming. The follower numbers are going up. And I have a lot of good connection with people through there, and that also feels good. So
very good. And I just want to clarify things. Okay. Megh has a ton of momentum and a ton of traffic, so she needs to spend more time on her stats than the rest of you. Because I always say to everyone, like, stop looking at your stats. Don't look at your stats for like the first couple of years, because all it's going to do is prevent you from continuing to ship content and get better and better and better at the storytelling. So I think
this is the first year. I'm on year 7, and honestly, I'm on year 13. And this is the first year that I have ever really, for one, had time, because I've learned how to scale myself in other ways.
Yes.
Especially like with marketing. But yes, this is the first year I've done it. So there's a lot of things that, like, there's processes and things that you can't do these things until all the little fires are out everywhere else. And at the beginning, there's little fires everywhere. So it's just, things change and the focus changes over time. And you just like figure it out as you go.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I think that was perfect, the perfect amount of time. The one thing that I'd like to end, and then we'll open it up on the Q&A, is
Mhm.
And I'll sort of tell the story because I love talking about the low points and the suffering and how it all goes. But early on in Megh's career, she was like in an art booth somewhere, and didn't someone like throw up in the booth, or did?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like on her feet all day on a Saturday, like 8 hours, somebody throws up in the booth. Okay. And she sells like, $300, and she's like, what am I doing?
No, I
Like,
sold nothing that day.
you sold nothing. Okay. So zero,
Yeah.
just straight goose egg, wasted the day cleaning up puke, the entire thing. And then she pivoted to what she did now. As much success as you've had, I'd be very curious what advice knowing what you know now, would you go back and give to year one, Megh? And then what advice would you have for everyone that's on this call that, is in year one or year two or year three?
I would say advice for year one, Megh, would be to slow down a little bit and let the things about making the work and like take more time in the art making process. Felt very rushed and kind of like, and my style has evolved in cool ways since I have like allowed myself more time for play and experimentation and just kind of like goofing around. Like, I wish I had allowed myself more time for that in year one. And for everybody else, I would say my biggest piece of advice, this might sound a little dark, but
Ooh, I like it. I'm intrigued.
No one is coming. Like, you have to be the person who goes out and gets the things. Nobody is coming to find you, to put you on the news. Nobody is coming to tell you that your work is finished and like it's good enough and you should go. No one's coming to tell you that you need to charge more for your art. No one's coming, and you have to be your own like biggest, this is so cheesy, but like you have to be your own biggest fan, because if you can't look at your work and say like, that is good, I did my best, I'm ready to put this out into the world and it's worth $20,000, and like that's the price, no one is going to tell you that something's worth $20,000. And if you are afraid and you say like, oh, I don't know if people can afford that, like no one's going to pay you $20,000 for something if you're like, I don't know. Like, you have to be confident, and confidence, like I said this earlier, but this is worth repeating, like confidence can be learned. I am not a naturally confident person, and it's something that I thought was a personality trait for most of my life, and it's not. It can be learned, and the way it gets developed is like anything else, is through practice. So like, just pay attention. Like, if you do a thing and you're like, damn, I feel good about that, like write it down and like do more of that until you begin to feel more self-confident, because there's nobody out there who's going to do the things for you and make the decisions for you and validate everything. Like, it has to be you. So do it. Be yourself.
Love it. Couldn't finish on a higher note than that. I think that was great. We went right about 55 minutes. Amazing. I don't think we're going to touch any higher points than that. I do want to ask you about your tattoo, but I will save that for I actually asked her about it already. I just like making fun of her for the tattoo. It's okay. So what I want to do is I want to open it up to Q&A. And if you are new, you're not an Art Storefront's customer, you don't know how this goes, if you look at the bottom of your Zoom window, there's a little smiley face and it says reactions. If you click that thing, there's a way to raise your hand, digitally speaking. That lets me know you have a question. I can bring you on. You can ask Megh whatever you like, and she will answer to the best of her ability. I want to be extremely sensitive to Megh's time, and I thank you for the time that you've invested in this already. I really appreciate you for that. So I would like to keep the questions short and succinct and to the point, so we can let Megh get back to building this business. And on that note, you ready? Ready for Q&A?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Okay. Sorry you got there first. Go ahead. You're up first.
I'd like to just say thank you, Megh. And thank you, Patrick. I thought you asked very insightful questions, and Megh, you gave really interesting answers. I did get a little nervous when you said it took you 13 years, because I'm 64. And I just don't know. And I also thought your comments were very insightful about coaches and mentors and the importance of that. I've done a lot of that in my prior career. I also dumped my corporate career 12 years ago and went full bore into my artist career. And, you know, it is a journey, and it helps to have someone by your side. So I just really wanted to say, you know, thank you for sharing, Patrick. Thank you for asking such wonderful questions to get Meg to share her story. It is very inspiring. And I think the thing my takeaway was when you said that you drove towards your audience first, you know, that you have to be responsive to that in order to create the space to do the work that you're most inspired by. And they'll follow you there if you give them initially what they need. And so, and lastly, I just want to say, I just did a promotion where I took a piece of art and I put a quote on it, said, "Be yourself, everyone else is already taken." And Oscar Wilde said that over 100 years ago. And I used that, cricket, but nevertheless, very important message. So thank you, Meg.
Thanks, Sarah. Awesome.
Thank you.
Love Oscar Wilde. Okay, Sandra, you're up next. Go ahead, Sandra.
Thanks, Meg. Thank you, Patrick. So wonderful to hear you and be with you on this. So I have a question. I'm here in New York City, one of the greatest places to sell art and be an artist. And I'm starting out, I've been doing this for a year now. And I'm curious, like, with regard to the story about the person vomiting in your booth, not selling anything. Like, I'll go out to the streets with my prints. I'll take some shots on Instagram. I'm in I would say year and a half of doing this. I started drawing and painting during pandemic again, and I had put that aside for many, many years. I actually got into film school with my painting, but then drifted from that, and now I'm painting again. So I guess my question is, like, what were the things that you specifically did that you felt were beneficial when sales were like not existent in the beginning? I mean, I'm a people person, happy to talk to anyone on any corner about anything. So that's never really my issue. It's just more like I'm sitting on the corner in the financial district with tourists everywhere, and they're looking at my art prints and they're like, wow, cool thing of the Empire State Building, but they're not buying it, right? Like, so it's like, how do I go from sharing, showing, connecting to the purchases?
That is a great question, and welcome back to painting. I feel like so many people found their way back during the pandemic. That's really cool. And I think you need to just keep at it. I think being a year and a half in, while that feels like an eternity, it's so fresh in terms of building a following and getting things going. And I also think it's important to be mindful of like where you're selling things and what the perception of you being in that place is. So if you're, on the corner in the financial district, it's kind of like, what is the perception of the work? Is it like you're a busker, or like you're somebody who's, like the people who are like the statues? Like, are people perceiving your work as like valuable and fine art if they see you on a street corner? And would they see the same work differently if they saw it shared by somebody on social media who's like a New York, like tourism New York person, and they're like, go find this person, they're here. So I think, thinking about like, look at yourself through the lens of how the people you want to buy your work, how do they see you? And then like, is it at the right level? They might just be perceiving your work as not valuable because of where you are. So try selling it in another place.
Love that. Fire another arrow for sure. Laura, you had your hand up, then it went down, so I saw your place in line. Go ahead.
Oh, thanks. Hey, Megan, fellow Chicago. Hi, good to see you. I guess my journey has been switched a little bit in the sense that I'm doing a lot more in-person art fairs. And I think your comment about telling a story is really important. And for me, that's been a really great testing ground for me to really talk about my process with my portraits because most of it is custom. And I've gotten a lot of learning of where the customers, I know Patrick, you talk a lot about friction, of where the questions are. And from that, I'm using on my Instagram post to answer some of those questions. So I've upped it and I've actually gotten a lot of great content from my social media because of that. So for those of you that are doing real art fairs, I think that's really valuable. But I do want to say one thing that I noticed about your Instagram right from the beginning is that your personality shone through. The way that you talked, it came across, you seem like a real person, you seem very approachable and all of that kind of stuff. And so I guess there's all these templates that are out there and I've stopped using them. I would just tell everybody, like you said, just be yourself. People want to get to know you. So just don't try to always follow, because we as artists, you know, we don't want to be like everybody else. So kind of confusing to me when everybody tries to mimic. And I think that comes across to others when you're not seeming real and people want to buy real art. They want to buy it from a real person. But that's why I started following you, was because you came across as genuine. I just wanted to say that. Excited about all your successes, and I'm hoping to follow in your footsteps in a few years. I've really started leaning in more into my art business and taking it more seriously past 3 years. I still have a day job, so it's a big juggling act, but just seeing people like you succeed has been really cool to see. So thanks. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Awesome. And I love the not following the templates, right? Or like copying what everyone else does. Like, being you is the only thing that matters. The templates and the stupid music and the transitions, it gets all the likes and comments and shares, is complete bullshit. That does nothing for anyone except stroke your ego. Be you, right? Do you, so show what makes you tick. I don't see you doing any of that stuff. You like what is the point? I'm gonna go on a side tangent, right? I'm gonna pipe. All right, Dave, you're up next. Go ahead, Dave.
Hey, Meg.
Hi, Dave.
I want to say, first of all, I want to know where you get your crystal ball, because one thing that Meg does really, really well in the Kansas City area is following trends. So when KU wins the basketball championship in 2022, Meg was already on top of it. When the Chiefs won the Super Bowl last year, Meg actually had someone on the field that was actually like, you know, giving her bags of confetti from the field to put in her art. When Casey Current got really big, our women's pro soccer team, and started to actually, you know, get some momentum and actually become really big in Kansas City, Meg was already on top of it. So, you know, when it comes to her marketing and just her ability to see what trends are happening in our market is amazing, because you know, it's not like that she is like going out and just making a painting of, you know, a landmark in Kansas City. She's actually following the trends that are actually out there within the Midwest, and actually getting in front of that, like the whole Ted Lasso thing. I mean, you know, she did this Jason Sudeikis thing last year, and then with Ted Lasso ending this year, you know, I mean, that really blew up. What I want to know, Meg, is, you know, marketing is, you know, always been hard for any artist, and you know, the Facebook thing and doing Instagram seems to be really, you know, doable. You just get on there and do what you need to do. Do you also do your own, are you doing your own weekly email marketing also? And are you kind of still following the art storefront calendar when it comes to the email marketing part?
Great question, and thanks for the kind words, Dave. I believe you are a KC guy as well. So
I am.
KC represent. I think you hit on two things here. So one of the things about this that you said is that marketing is hard for all artists, and I think it's really important to acknowledge that like marketing is hard for all artists, but why? And I think many of us, myself included, especially at the beginning, have this romantic notion that we're going to be in like a sunbathed, beautiful studio painting all day with people doing all the other things for us. And like, I mean, maybe someday if you can scale a business to be that big to support that many employees, like if you think about the reality of that, like that, to expect that all of our time should be spent making art and any other time is a pain in the ass, like we all have to let go of that. Plan like bare minimum, like, and Patrick will probably want to correct or hate me for saying this, but like 50-50, like 50% of your time you're creating, 50% of your time you are marketing, and you are doing the administrative, business, all the other things you have to do. Like you got to order canvases, you got to, you know, pay your studio rent. Like it is not realistic to expect that we should be spending all of our time doing other things, because then when we do the marketing, it's like I hate this, or like, ooh, sales. But like, we're all, if you are selling your work, you're a business. And if you're a business, in order to make money, you have to make sales, which makes you a salesperson, and you have to sell things. Like, these are just things we have to accept. This is part of, unless you just want to make art and not make any money off of it. So I think there's like common things about artists and being an artist and all these things that we need to just like let go of and accept that like these are the things. And then once we get there doing the marketing, it's not always easy, but it's easier when we can accept and appreciate it as like it's part of the process. It's important. This is how I connect with people. This is how I tell stories, and find ways to make it fill your cup. So like the way it fills my cup, you're asking about the weekly email marketing. I do write that, and I focus on trying to tell a story and to do like the other part of my creative process, which is like sharing some of that research or storytelling. And that, you know, the long form and the way that it gets written and it shares a lot of photos, like whether or not that's like best practices, like I kind of don't care, because it makes me continually do it. And people do respond to those emails and tell like, oh yeah, once upon a time I had this story too, and I've had this great rapport with people because of those. So, and I do, I kind of go on and off following the calendar. I'm not a great follower because I sometimes am on projects that kind of like coincide with it, but the Copilot has really helped me to capitalize on sales and sales times that I wouldn't have otherwise run. And it's helped keep, you know, summer has traditionally been a slower time for me sales wise, and it has not this summer because of that. So, so yes, following the calendar by way of Copilot.
and I completely love what you said. I mean, you know what the best practice is? 95% of it, just doing the thing. Did you not lose the opportunity? Did you ship it right? Did it go out? Like that's totally a huge part of it. Okay. Yeah. Great question. Next up, Jim Peters.
Hey, Megh, thank you for doing this today. Hey, I've always had a question about transformative art, and I'm sure you know that term. And I'm wondering if that's what you exercised when you did your initial KU piece.
I don't know what you mean by transformative. Can you explain that?
Okay, well, if you do something like, for example, you do a celebrity and you copy a photograph and do it verbatim and make it look just like a photograph, then it's copyright infringement. But if you do something that is really sort of an implication of that person with your own style, then it's transformative art. It's all about the legal sense of using things like the KU bird in your art. So that's my question. Did you have legal right to use that initially, or how did that work out?
Yeah, so this is, I would say, one of the most common questions I get from art storefronts and other artists.
It's been in the chat like 7 times already, so I was going to prompt someone.
So I will cover it. I like to look at this in 2 ways. So for the KU, University of Kansas Jayhawk logo, yes, I have licensing granted to me from the university to use that icon, and they receive a royalty percentage back for every sale that I make. So when I created that work, I did so to get the licensing approval. If I didn't have licensing approval for that or the other landmarks on campus, I could not sell that. That is a very, very clear cut, like, don't take a logo and paint the logo and then sell the work without getting licensing approval, because that is very clear cut. Where it's, because it is a corporation, a big company, like don't paint the Nike swoosh, don't do any of that. So when it comes to things like painting portraits of people, like you said, I can't just go out and get my own photo of Jimi Hendrix, who is not alive anymore. So I have to work from source imagery for that. And when I'm creating the work, whether or not it's considered transformative would rely upon there's like a certain ratio. It's all very blurry, murky. Like I would need a copyright attorney. Who's going to come after me is probably like the Jimi Hendrix, people who manage his estate, with whom I'm trying to get it licensed, by the way. My goal is always to get something licensed, but it's not always possible. So when I'm painting a portrait of somebody's face, I am weighing what is the risk factor here for me? And I am always saving a percentage of the sales of that piece in case somebody comes after me. Because here's the cool thing. If I paint Dolly Parton and they come after me, that means I'm on their radar. And then I can say, cool, actually, I've been saving. I would love to give you 10% of all the sales. And also, could we talk about how I could continue to give you 10% of all these sales? They might say yes. They might say, give us your money and stop. They might say, continue giving us your money. There are a lot of different ways these legal things can go. And so I think it's just having an open mind and a preparedness for, like, if you are doing a piece that gets on somebody's radar, especially like a celebrity, that's great. This is all also to say, I know you guys probably all saw the big court case that came down for the Andy Warhol piece, and that the photographer should be, it's all kind of falls under the same thing. The photographer says, like, stop using that, or give me a percentage of your sales, or license that image from me. Just being told or being caught is not the end. It is just simply opening a conversation, and you might have to pay back some of the royalties for that thing. And like, just be prepared to pay back royalties on the stuff. But I would say that really only applies for things that are more amorphous, like celebrity pictures and people, where it's a little harder to define where that image came from than it is for like the Nike Corporation to catch wind of your painting and be like, stop using our logo. But, fan art and stuff like that, it's pretty rare that when you're doing something complimentary and like a fan, and to be like called out and said and told to stop doing something. So I think about the risk of all of it, but I don't not do something just because there's no way I can get it licensed. So I'm not an intellectual property attorney. I have one, and if there were something that happened, I would know who to go to. But I think for all of us, I'm a small fish in a pretty big pond. So for me to not pursue a painting just because I'm afraid I might get sued is like, if it's a painting of a person I really admire, and also many of those have a donation component back to something meaningful to that person, like that all feels pretty okay to me.
Awesome. What a fantastic answer. What a genius hack too. Like, the most difficult thing to do is get past the gatekeepers to the person that actually makes the decision on whether or not you're going to be able to license something. When I say most difficult, damn near impossible, right?
Yeah.
Damn near impossible. And that is a clever little hack that I imagine in your career is going to work out for you, because it's all about starting a conversation.
Yeah. We'll see.
It. Yeah. Amazing. Judith, you're up next. You'll need to unmute, Judith. I'll let you know when you get it. Mic icon, bottom left-hand corner.
Okay, sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
Anyway, it's been a pleasure to be listening to you, Megan. I haven't been active in a few months. I've been traveling and then had some health issues, but I have baby questions. I'm 83 years old. I've been painting for a while, and now I'm more serious about selling my art. And I don't know social media. I'm on Instagram and Facebook because Art Storefronts told me to do that. but I don't know really how to get followers. I was told to post something every day. I got a few more people by doing that. I'm ready to gear up again. And do you have any advice for me?
Oh, well, I love that you are focusing on selling your work. And I think talking about your story and talking about how you are pursuing your art career at 83, like I don't want to call attention too much to your age, but I think that pursuing it and talking about like what type of work you're making in your story and your life is the best way to get new followers and fans, because like Patrick said, and like we'll all say a million times and drill in over and over again, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. That's like a classic Simon Sinek quote. And it's true for everything that you ever buy ever, even toilet paper. Like you are buying things whether you are conscious of it or not, because you feel something about that brand, or you trust them, or you like them. And it's the same thing for us as artists. Nobody can tell our story better than us. Nobody can talk about why we make the work better than us. And that's what people really want to see. They want to know, like, well, why did you paint that? How did you do that? Tell me why you have a personal tie to that. Tell me about you grew up here and that's interesting. And so did I. And like, it's social media. That's the cool thing about it, is that we can use it as a tool to tell our stories and do it in so many different ways. So I would just start, I think, by maybe practicing writing some of these things down and like pairing some of those stories with just images of your work. That's like a really simple way to not complicate it too much, not try to make like, complicated reels and all that stuff. Like, I think just putting in like a little paragraph and just starting to like tell your story in little bursts. And then there's lots of other tactics through, like Patrick can probably link, and there's like art storefronts guidebooks and ways for growing your following and curator strategies and stuff. But getting into the habit of like, how are you going to entertain people and how are you going to tell them your story through social media? Like start practicing that part of it, and then you'll get the hang of it through there.
Yeah. And I would also say, Judith, like, being 83 and not being super native to social media and having it be confusing. I'm 44 and it's confusing as hell to me. They're constantly moving the buttons around. I don't understand how to find things. I'm supposed to be a social media marketing expert. I can't even get into Facebook to get my stats because they've hidden it on 65 different menus. It's supposed to be awkward and annoying. That's never going to go away. And then when you realize that, you're like, I'm just going to go for it. I'm just going to go for it and click and move and do everything else. So stay encouraged. And like, there's so many avatars that are coming on like Judith, where this is like the most beautiful thing of your guys' location. There's no off switch. There's no off switch. It's with you for whatever God gives you on this planet. And then when you contemplate the number of years that you have left to like keep going and have purpose later in life and still be able to sell and have a business, it's insane. It's amazing. Mm-hmm. Do I love marketing? I love marketing. As soon as I'm retired, am I going to still be marketing? No. Like, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. Like, where's my artistic pursuit, right? Like, I want to go cook, or maybe I'll start photography. I don't know. But great questions, Judith, and welcome back. Okay, Janie, you're up next. Go, Janie.
Hi there. Thank you, Megan. It's been great, and I've written down a lot of stuff that you were talking about. I have a very basic question. I am new, like the last woman, and I'm 70 and just starting. I just got my first sale of an original.
Nice.
Hey, everybody clap. That's amazing.
I wanted to ask, how did you do the mail out? Did you take it to be professionally wrapped to be shipped? My husband says make sure you get a signature and insure it. And then once you got going, let's say I do a show or something for my basement and I have to sell a whole bunch. Did you and your husband wrap and ship, or do you have a professional do it?
Well, welcome aboard. And Congratulations on the sale. That's huge. And yes, Pat, I was asking the same question when I first started out to some of the other members of Art Storefront, like how in the hell do you pack up your originals? Because this is a thing like we all have to deal with. And when I have one great hack for future sales that I'll share. So I'll make a note. So you can do several different things. One thing you can do is just take the piece directly to the UPS store or to FedEx and pay them, and they will pack it securely and ship it out. This is kind of expensive, so you need to like backfill in the pricing on your originals on your website to allow for this. Typically, it depends on the size of the piece. It typically is like $100 to do that. And like, I think the last time I shipped a piece there, it was like a 4 foot by 6 foot piece, and I had them pack it. And I think it was like $400 to ship it. So keep that in mind as you guys are setting up the pricing for your originals. So you can definitely do that. There are also people, now what I do is there's a person in Kansas City who comes to the studio and picks things up, brings them back, and packs and ships them for me. So that eliminates me having to schlep them out to my car, or in many cases they're too big to fit in my car. So now I have somebody come and do that for me. But you can do that also. The hack, I would say, is for originals, especially if you're doing a commission for somebody who's out of state, order the canvas online and have it shipped to you. And then you have the box that's the perfect size. And then when you ship it back, you don't have to pay to have it packed. So I do that a lot, especially with like larger pieces where they will build a crate for the canvas to come in. Then I have the crate, and then I just like pack it back up and ship it, and you can have somebody come pick it up. You can schedule a pickup with UPS or FedEx to come get the piece too, so you don't have to schlep it out.
Love that. And that's also what we recommend always with the, I have to hand sign my prints or my limited editions. It's like, okay, have them pack it, ship it to you, gently unwrap, quick sign, right back, same packaging, out it goes. So that's a variation of that, and I love that. So smart.
Yeah.
All right, Karen, you're up next.
Thank you. Amazing presentation, Meg. Fantastic. Thank you. I'm going to go kind of fast with a question. I'm curious about art retreats and art residency programs. I've been researching them lately. They look very inspiring. Have you done them? What are your thoughts on that? And curious about everybody else here. Have they gone on them? Are they inspiring and worth it?
Ooh, I love this question. And this like plays so hard into my like romantic ideal of just like going away for a month and making art for the month. For me personally, because I have small kids, it's unrealistic for me to leave for that long and go to a residency now. I hope as I get older and my kids are a little easier, I will and hope to do this someday somewhere, but I don't have personal experience with it now. But I think getting away and spending some time to just like really dive in on something is great. But also you might just need a vacation too. If it sounds really good, you might end up just sleeping the whole time if you're me. So
classic. If anyone has responses to that and you want to throw in the chat, though, you certainly can. Okay, Charles, you're up next. Go ahead, Charles.
Hi, Meg. Thanks for being here. Your story to me is fascinating. I love how big you look at how you do your stuff, and you're looking at trends and kind of looking at kind of reverse engineering your career, so to speak. I'm new to Art Storefronts. I think I'm just in my first month. I kind of created a problem for myself in that I mean it's a very good problem to have. So I signed up for Art Storefronts, and in the first month, I've gotten about 20 commissions.
I know this problem well.
Yeah.
Carry on.
Yeah. Essentially, I found out I was going to be laid off because of the writer's strike in Hollywood. I'm in animation. And so as soon as I found out I was going to be laid off, I got on Facebook. And this is even before I was on Art Storefronts, I think. And, started like just showing some of the things I'd done for the past year. And I hit a very specific market up where my cabin is, up in the mountains outside of LA. And I like do dogs and I do cabins, and like people love their dogs and love their cabins up there. So that's pretty much my career right now, are those things. And I literally could make a living at this, you know. Now the problem is what I'm finding is like, I really want to do other pieces that I actually can sell as prints. And like, you know, like you're saying, sell 1 million copies of, you know, the one thing that you do, instead of doing one thing for one person and only getting your bang for your buck out of doing that one thing.
Yeah.
I started showing my stuff at a gallery last week, and I got a commission from that too. And now I'm starting to see, well, some of my commissions can be made into prints and people will buy them. So I'm now looking at it like that. So I guess, like, what do you do with a problem like that? Because I need to like get off of that train, you know, and like stand away from that. I have like 4 months of work ahead of me that I have to do, you know, and I love it. I mean, I'm glad, but you know, I'm wanting to see myself go in another direction.
Oh man, I have so many similar feelings and stories, so I can relate to this so much. First of all, welcome to Art Storefronts, and I would say sorry you got laid off, but it sounds like things are going okay for you. So, so that's good. Okay, so you got a lot of commissions. So for one, I would say, if it sounds like you might be hitting a cap point. So what I think you need to do is like cap off your commissions right now and say, I'm not accepting any new commissions until 2024. You can leave it open-ended, but collect those people's email addresses, put them in a box somewhere where then you email that list of people when you're ready to reopen. So like cap it off now, because a lot's going to probably change for you between now and 4 months from now, since you're so early. For one, your prices are going to go up. So you don't want to lock in people for commissions just at like an ongoing, never-ending basis, because if you lock them in at a price now and you don't do the work until 2025, this happened to me. This sucks so hard. People are locked in to pay you X amount, but you're actually, if you were taking it on at that moment, you'd be charging way more. So when you cap people off and then bring them in later, then you can charge them what you're charging at that moment. So I only take them on, like right now, I'm only taking them on like one at a time. So, and then a great learning and lesson from this is like, you will do more of the work that you show people that you do. So if you're just showing cabins and dogs, you're going to do cabins and dogs. People are not that creative when they're asking for commissions. People will commission you to do the work they see that you can do. So if you don't want to do cabins and dogs, you need to do some other work and show that work. I did a portrait of somebody's cat like a few years ago, and it is like the dopest painting ever, but I never showed anyone because it was like, I will paint people's cats until the day I die if I show this. So like, be mindful of that. And I would say also with these pieces, set the expectation with the commissioner that you retain the rights to your work and you retain the right to make reproductions of that work forever. And if they would not like you to do that, here's the price for that. So they can buy you out and the piece can just be for them. But it's going to cost, 4X or 5X or 10X or whatever. I have a commission contract now, and there's a clause and a spot where people can buy out like the full rights to the piece if they don't want me to make reproductions of it. So you can do that, but just set the expectation, because if you are going to make reproductions, I did that with some early pieces. And thankfully it was a family member, but they were kind of pissed that I was selling reproductions of it. They didn't know that. So that was a lesson learned. And thankfully from somebody who could like easily forgive me. So just make sure photograph everything you do, like photograph at high res and hang on to it. And then you might be able to sell reproductions in the future. And also one like final note on this is something I've just learned this year. I'm being very specific about only taking on commissions and work and new work that I can make reproductions of, because my time is valuable. And if I'm painting a portrait of somebody's grandma, like, I love that so much, but I can't sell that to anybody else. And so the price is going to be like a lot. And people can choose to pay that, or I can like move on to something else. So be mindful of taking on and prioritizing the work that you can make reproductions of until you have that, engine really like running the business. And then you can take on some of those more specialty commissions.
What a great question. And I got to chime in because I'm just laughing here a little bit inside.
Yeah.
Number one, in terms of the commissions, the difficulty with them, specifically animals, and I want to talk specifically about dogs because the dogs are different than the cats a little bit. Everybody wants a commission painting of themselves or their dog, or themselves and their dog, or whatever it is, their dog. Everyone loves that. You know what no one loves? Buying anything that is someone else's dog. Now, that doesn't 100% apply to cats, I found. The cats are a little more generic. And I was just laughing because I was like, he should quit, because you're so right. I completely agree with all of your advice. It's like, you keep going down that path, you're going to be in that path forever. It's like, I want to quit drinking. Well, then stop going to the bar, right? Let's stop going to the bar. But I was laughing because a book of cats and cabins in the San Gabriel Mountains, or whatever the mountains are, would be hilarious. And that would totally sell cats and cabins.
It would.
It's got a ring to it too. And no, he's an animator. So, okay. I got to keep moving. His time constraints. Absolutely.
It would. That's genius.
I love what you said about the buyout clause too, because even if you have no intention of ever selling it or reproducing it, that would just be a way to increase your AOV. So, hell of great advice there. I'm totally stealing that. I will do citations where required. Okay. What was it? Compliment to you, Meg. Like, I'll cite your name, Meg. I stole this from Meg.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever.
Okay, Hannah, you're up next. Go ahead.
Okay, maybe I just missed it, but what year since you joined Art Storefronts did you purchase Copilot? And do you wish you would have done it sooner, or kind of talk to me about how Copilot works specifically for you, please.
Sure. I purchased it, I feel like when they were like doing the big launch event thing, like 4 months ago.
It's only 4 months old, so she couldn't have purchased it back then. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Do I wish I had it before? Absolutely, yes. And do I wish, and one of the things we've been talking about for the future is like, how do I tie more of my, here's a video of Meg painting a thing, stuff into it. So I think that's like the future of it.
Yeah, we're gonna get
is that. Yeah. I mean, we're not there yet, but like I think it's a beautiful way to like take things that we've already thought once really hard about and like let them go out and like make babies on the internet.
Awesome. Sorry, I got distracted by something. Okay, Janine, you're up next. Keep it pithy, Janine. Okay, keep it pithy. Meg's time is valuable. It's not office hours. Okay, Janine?
Come on, Patrick. You know I'm not the worst offender. Anyway, Meg, it's really great to meet you. I'm going to turn my video off because I have bad internet.
Too.
It's great, really great to meet you here in this forum. I joined Art Storefronts in 2020, right at the lockdown, painted up a storm. But you are the first people that I recall Art Storefronts mentioning and showing your, that you were basically having success with on the platform. And of course, they would have that trumpet that, and it's great, and it's really exciting. I appreciate a lot of the practical tips that you've given today. Really helpful. Like yourself, I'm a graphic designer. My business is 40 years old. I'm older, and I'm sick of it. Yeah, I'm sick of it. Was a huge success for many years, primarily in Los Angeles, started out in New York. And I really loved doing it, but I don't love it anymore because the industry has really become different, and I don't need to get into all that. But I also have a piece of art that I can scale and that I want to possibly, if not license, just scale and sell lots of it, lots more than I have been. And Patrick, I think, is aware of what I'm talking about. I've kind of gotten my marching orders from Nick, especially to really get more eyeballs on it, and that's what I need to do. I have a lot of confidence in the art, and it's a very popular seller, but on a very, very tiny level. So basically, I want to ramp it up and sell a lot more of it. Hearing all the different things that you've done have been very helpful, but is there something that you would, just name as a very important thing to focus on? I know with Nick, it's, get expand your audience. I've only got 500 emails. That's not very many.
500 is a lot when you compare it to 0. So I would say way to go getting 500. And I always love connecting with other graphic designers because I totally get it. My husband is still one. So I get how the industry is changing. Can I ask what the subject matter of the piece is? I think that might determine my answer.
Yeah, I muted her. So
is it a secret?
No. It's great, and I'm encouraging her on it. So she's got like nursery room style letters of the alphabet kind of painted out. Things that would be in a nursery, but really cool kids art too. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I think continue doing all the things you're doing. So putting it out to your existing audience on social media, on your email list, and then curators, giveaways, curator strategy, people who are like, I hate the phrase like mommy blogger, but like mommy
so
bloggers.
True. So true.
For sure. And then PR. And we didn't really touch on this today, but I think this is important to talk about. PR can be huge. And the way PR works is not that like somebody from the newspaper like finds you. And this goes back to this, like they come and find you and knock on your door and they're like, I hear there's an artist in there. Like PR is strategically pitched. And it's like around times of the year. It's like specifically around events and things. Like you get PR by going out to get PR. It doesn't come to you. So like any PR that I've gotten, if you see me, like I've been on the news, I've been in the newspaper, I've been in these magazines, blah, blah, blah. Like these are all strategically pitched things that I'm intentionally going out and getting for the most part. Sometimes they give way to other things that I didn't plan, but for the most part, like those are things that are intentional. So if you think that you're not getting PR because no one's finding you, it's because you're not trying to go get it. The news is like constant. They need news. They need stories. So yours is like a perfect, like be on the morning news segment about like cute ways to decorate your nursery. Maybe there's a time of the year when people are like more likely having kids, like maybe there's a seasonality to that. Or like, see if there's like some sort of like time of year tie that you can like work your story in and like pitch the angle out to say like, hey, September 8th is National Nursery Day, blah, here's my stuff. And then see what happens. I think news stories help to add credibility to your brand. And then you can put that onto your stuff and say like, as featured by Fox 4 News. And then people are like, oh, this artist must be a big deal because they've been on the news. Just because you knew that being on the news gives you credibility. That's like a secret that not everybody knows. So try getting other people to talk about your work at the same time that you're talking about it, and try to hitch your wagon to somebody who has a really big audience of people who would go bananas for writing the name Bernadette out in all of your letters, which would be a great sale because it's a lot of letters.
Awesome. So true. All right, Jonathan, you're up next. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Hey, how's it going, Meg? Thanks for
Jonathan.
doing this. A couple quick questions. I am a new stay-at-home dad. Wondering if you had any advice for artists with kids.
How old are your kids?
He's about to turn 2 in 3 weeks, actually.
That's awesome. Good for you being a new stay-at-home dad. It can be kind of like disorienting to switch into being a stay-at-home parent. My experience with that was through the pandemic, actually. I was like, whoa, what? So my advice would be I touched on this a little bit earlier on, but to take it day by day and think about like, what are the things that I can absolutely rely on and that are like set things, and what things are unpredictable. And especially when it comes to like your schedule and your time and like your to-do list and what you're trying to get done, try to only put those things into the actual number of hours you have to work and try and make it realistic. Like you might be able to work every night between like 8 and 11, but like if you were home with a 2-year-old all day, like you're going to be tired as hell and you're not going to want to work from 8 to 11. So if your kid naps pretty dependably, while that might not be a long-term thing you can plan on, you might get an hour where you can do 1 hour of work and then like build your schedule into that so that your to-do list for the week is simply like, 5 hours of work and you can like notch them all off. And at the end of the week, you can be like, I did it. It was awesome. You can't set your expectation to be that you're doing the amount of things that somebody who's doing it full time is. And you can't try to do it while you're also with your kid. It doesn't work. So you have to like do a little bit at a time. And then as your kid gets older, you can like do a little more. But also when they stop napping, it's like near impossible to do any work while they're awake. So just, do what you can with what you have, and don't set your expectations of yourself too high because it'll be disappointing.
Strong drinks as well. Strong drink. At least in my case.
Strong cocktails. Yeah.
And Jonathan, we can only do one question. So yeah, that was your one. I gotta keep moving through because we're getting up to the hard stop here. Okay, Andrea, you're up next.
Hello, how are you? Thank you for being here today. I guess my most pertinent question is, it's kind of like I resonated with something you said, that you didn't want to just churn out originals, and I feel the same way. I really want to be able to focus a lot on prints because I don't make a million originals. I work large and in oils, and it's time consuming and heavy layered. So I'm trying to push that because I'm okay with selling my originals. I do want the prices up more. And I also was listening when you said, charge what you think it's worth. I know it's a little scary. I'm not sure how you do that, but I don't think that the gallery I'm in is charging enough. And I would rather sell them on my own. But so that's kind of a combo question, I guess. Maybe you could just fill me in on how you feel on those two things.
Sure. I think you might have just answered your own question. If I can be so blunt, if you don't think your gallery is charging enough and you should sell it on your own, then you should pull out of the gallery and sell it on your own. I have feelings about galleries. I think everybody needs to follow their own path, do what works for them, but they need to be working pretty hard to get 50% of that amount. And you're also not really retaining the relationship with the people that they sell the work to. You don't own that, they own it. So you want to own your people and your relationships and those stories. So I would say, if you don't feel good about that, then like listen to your gut there and pull out. And then as far as selling more prints of your originals, what you may need to do for a little while is to take your time that you spend painting and your time that you spend marketing and shift a little harder into marketing to get that engine of selling prints going. So in order to sell print reproductions, you need to have an audience of people. There's one person buying one original, but a lot of people can buy prints. And so you might need to just spend more time doing things like sending emails, posting to social media, doing curator giveaways, doing some of those press and PR things that I was just talking about previously, and growing the funnel at the top so that there's more people in it. And then once that kind of gets moving, then you can bring it back into balance and you can paint and work on your originals a little more.
Okay, great answer, Megh. Aylin, you're up next. Go ahead, Aylin.
Hi, I just kind of came upon this live, my mom shared it with me. So I just had a very, very basic question. You mentioned briefly that you had started in booths, and I'm in the very, very infant stages of my own business, and I wanted to kind of test out the market in booths, but the season's kind of going to go by me for it. So I didn't know if you had any recommendations in terms of from personal experience where a good starting, I guess, test the market would be.
Is the work ready right now?
I'm in the process of getting some inventory in. I've been very afraid to invest in it, but I'm giving myself the actual like push that I need to do it now. So I'm just trying to gauge like if I'm doing it in the smartest way.
Meg, I've got the good one on this. Do you,
Okay, I was going to say, you go.
is your house capable of having a garage sale?
I currently live in an apartment.
Might need to do a friend's house with a garage sale. You can. What I don't want you to do is wait. I don't want you to wait on anything. I want you to get whatever work you have and try to get it in front of eyeballs. And so I love the fake a garage sale and move all the crap out of the garage and try to sell it. And actually, you could care less about the garage sale. You're selling the art. But you could also, set up somewhere where there's good foot traffic and just throw all the works up on a table. And if somebody comes and yells at you, the worst they're going to do is just say, take it down. But I've got people that live in the beach community. People do this at the beach all the time. They don't even ever chase them out. Don't wait. Even if the season's going to pass you up, like get into it immediately. Do not wait, because you don't know what you don't know. And your mom is awesome for putting you in here, by the way. Love that. Okay. Mark, you're up next. Sorry, I see you're still in line, but you've already had a question. I'm trying to be democratic. All right, Mark, go ahead.
Hey, that's fine. Patrick, how are you?
Good.
Meg, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
I have a very two-part question, since Patrick said I can only ask one.
Good hack.
Did you hire a PR firm? And if so, how did you find them?
Not until this year. So up until now, no. The way that I was able to get PR in the past was either through trading it out with like friends and family and people I knew who knew a person who could put something in front of somebody. So before then, no. This year I did. The way that I met that person was through, I donate work to a lot of charity events in town. And when I donate these pieces, I often get invited to the event. And there's one PR guy who's just like always there and always my point of contact for all the things, very well connected. So that was how I met him, just by being a guy about town.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Sorry, something derped out with my Zoom there. All right. Next up is Cassie. Go ahead, Cassie.
Yes, hi, thank you. So my question is regarding like events, like booths, those types of things. So I'm in the earlier process of my business, work full time, have small children. I usually get a lot of get commissions, has been the majority of my sales, pets and things like that. I also did one like specific niche convention last year, which I did make like at least like $1,200, smaller items, but I didn't get a lot of emails, or I couldn't collect emails, wasn't allowed, things back then, people returning to my site. So my question regarding to you, like how vital was it for you to, when you started, and did you notice like it was better for you reaching out, doing all those multiple like booths or events or shows at the beginning of your business or career?
Yeah, great question. And I would say my answer, you'll be able to relate to the reasons why, because you have small kids also. For me, everybody does things differently, but for me, doing shows did not work because they're always on weekends, which meant like getting childcare. There's like a lot of schlepping and prep stuff. And when I sat down and did the numbers for like, here's how much it costs to be at this convention. You said you did $1,200 in sales. Like, how much did it cost you to prep your inventory? How much time did you spend? And how much did it cost to be at that convention? Was it did that end up being a wash for you when you were there? I think it's a worthwhile question to ask. I think Patrick probably has you muted, but I would say I personally did the math on those things, and it was like, when I'm spending this much time, this much money, and it costs this much, here's how much I need to make when I do them. And it just was like, it did not work out for me, especially when I factored in like, I'm going to have hire childcare all day if I need some help getting things in. So doing things where you don't have to have inventory And so like doing giveaways, partnerships, things online and through social media is you're a lot more nimble, and that stuff can work for you like at night and during the day. And at all those times, if you are working full time and you have small kids, your most precious resource is time. And you need to be like, if you want to move from where you are into working full time, you have to be very strategic about the things you do being super high value, like, and making you money or finding you customers. So I think that is the key for you. And I would say, like, bluntly, like, I think doing events is going to be kind of a waste of your time. And I think you need to focus on other things.
Fairs and shows, all the in-person stuff, awesome. Problem, it's hard. It's just hard. Yeah. Even without kids, it's hard. Great answer on that, though. Terry, you're up next. You'll need to unmute, Terry. Yep.
Yes, I got it. Well, thank you for all of this. And I got a little freaked out when you started talking about the doing the portraits, because I've been working on a project for a singer that I like very much, and researching and practicing sketches, and I have an idea for a painting, and I really I kind of thought, ooh, I could get in trouble for this somehow. What is the prep? Do you reach out and contact these people before you make a thing for permission? Or how exactly, for a live person, a person who's living?
No, I mean, don't stop before you start. Like,
yes.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, Meg, you got muted. I muted you. That's what happens in my savage mutery.
Okay, don't stop before you start. Make the piece, put it out there, sell $100,000 worth of it, and then let's talk.
Simple as that. Stated another way, not legal advice. I'm not an attorney. Meg is not an attorney.
Yeah.
It is easier.
I'm not, but like,
it's easier to beg forgiveness than ask permission.
Yeah.
Do not let it get in the way. Just crank it out and stop worrying about it. It is just not a problem. And, you know, the odds are that it might never be a problem. And if it's never going to be a problem, then people hate me for this, for saying this, especially the legal minded, is like, you're dealing with a problem that's not a problem. And then you end up spending a month and a half of your time dealing with a problem that's not a problem. It's never going to be a problem.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yes.
Got Mike Warren in the chat said, permission is almost impossible to get. Getting noticed is almost as hard. Somebody should put that on a t-shirt. God, that's so true.
It's yes.
Okay.
Seriously. Go through the worst possible case scenario, and then, you know, it would all be good. If you get noticed, that's great. Like, it's, don't stop before you start.
Yeah. I could just picture us sitting around. Yes, we got sued. We got sued. You know, I can only imagine. All right, Muffy and Karen, and then Meg, we will let you go. And you've been so gracious with your time. I really appreciate you. Go ahead, Muffy.
All right, thanks, Patrick. Meg, I watched you when you did your studio moving sale, and I really, I'm in the process of building a whole new studio right now, and I've got a lot of extra work I've got to get rid of. What would be your best takeaways for how I could move work before I move into the studio?
I'm pretty sure that there's a basement sale or like a art sale playbook that they put together. So I would say follow that, and then turn on a notification, like a ding. Like there was like a ding and a bling in the background every time somebody bought something on that sale. And I think it created some kind of fun like FOMO. So set it up so that when you get an email, when you get an email for a sale, just turn on your phone to ding every time you get an email. And then as people buy things in the background, they'll hear that like, ba-da-ding.
Yeah, that was so good. We have it in video in the vault somewhere, but that was a wild one. It's a long time.
Yeah.
That was years ago now. Crazy. We'd link and they go by.
Yeah.
All right, Karen.
Yeah.
Hi, Meg. I've heard about you for a while too, and congratulations on your success. I have a couple questions. First I was out of curiosity, how did you get Jason Sudeikis involved once you created your painting? I know there was a charity element, but and I was curious what he thought when you first approached him.
I did not. The charity approached me to make a piece for their annual fundraiser. And Sudeikis is a friend of the charity owner, and he comes in every year to be part of it. I didn't know the meeting or any of that was going to happen until about 6 hours before. So that was all just, it happens that he autographed the original, but that was not part of the process. Really, I was just creating a painting as a auction item for a local charity. And he liked it. He was like, smiled, and it was weird. It was more weird for me probably than for him to see the face of the person next to the painting.
Yeah, classic. Megh, amazing job. Totally appreciate your insights. I learned a ton. Had a great time. Thank you. Raise the prices on your originals. They're too cheap. And yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody.
Any parting words? I should have at least given you that.
No, I would say I covered a lot of ground, but if people want to DM me, I probably shouldn't open this Pandora's box, but if you have follow-up questions, it might take me a while to get back to you, but I will.
To the 10,000 people watching this stream on Facebook and YouTube, please DM Megh immediately with multi-point detailed questions. She prefers a bullet point of at least 20. Thanks, Megh. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Everybody have a great rest of your weeks. And we'll see y'all soon.